The lobby buzzed like a beehive under the white-hot lights of the Hollywood and Politics crossover forum. Reporters swarmed, influencers angled for the best selfies, and sharp-suited politicians air-kissed starlets. Karoline Leavitt stepped through. The doors, a navy-blue storm against a sea of smug smiles and raised eyebrows. Her heels clicked sharp against the marble floor. She didn't glance sideways. She didn't need to. She felt it, the whispers trailing her like smoke. Did you see what Donald Glover posted? Brutal, man. Absolutely wrecked her. She's just still showing up. Phones blinked to life in trembling hands. Screens flashed the viral tweet like a neon slap across the room, a mocking picture of Karoline from her recent interview. Photoshopped to look like a golden Barbie doll, captioned, "America's blonde echo chamber." The laughter buzzed low, ugly. Some tried to hide their grins behind coffee cups. Some didn't bother. Karoline walked straight through it, face smooth as glass, shoulders locked in unshakable pride. Across the room, a small knot of celebrities watched her like wolves watching. A lone deer. At the center, Donald Glover lounged casually, a slow, cruel smile spreading. Karoline didn't blink, didn't stumble. The cameras caught it all. The audience held its breath, waiting for her to crack. Hours before the glittering forum, the attack had already begun. Donald Glover sat somewhere in Los Angeles, thumb hovering over his phone, grinning. One sharp tweet. That's all it took. America's blonde echo chamber strikes again. Freedom Ferry Hour coming soon, he posted, tagging a blurry screen grab from Karoline's latest interview. A laughing emoji sealed the blow. Instant chaos within. 15 minutes, his post exploded across social media. Retweets flooded in. Thousands of likes every second. Influencers jumped on board, adding fairy wings, magic wands, and glitter to her image. Memes surfaced with Karoline photoshopped flying over Capitol Hill, showering pixie dust on microphones. Major media outlets latched onto it like hyenas scenting weakness. News tickers screamed, "Karoline Leavitt trolled. Freedom Ferry goes viral." Morning shows aired segments titled "Wand-Waving and Word Salad." Commentators smirked over coffee mugs. Bloggers wrote savage takes within hours. Freedom Ferry trended before breakfast. By noon, even comedians who barely touched politics tossed jokes at her expense. Karoline's credibility, built over countless interviews, town halls, and debates, looked ready to collapse under a mountain of glittering humiliation. No one cared that her arguments had been logical, careful, deeply researched. Only the image mattered now. Only the fairy wings, only the laugh, backstage at the Hollywood and Politics forum. Karoline reviewed her notes with mechanical focus. But tension cut through the air like electricity. Staffers darted around, whispering. Journalists adjusted their cameras, barely hiding grins. Donald stood near the refreshment table, mug in hand, chatting loudly enough to be overheard. "Hope. She brought her wand tonight," he said. Laughter followed. Karoline didn't blink. She buttoned her navy blue blazer. Each move precise, controlled. Her team hovered nearby, tense, unsure if they should speak. No pep talks, no last-minute strategies. Just the sharp, silent understanding that she was walking into a war zone. Donald made sure to cross her path as she approached the backstage curtain. "Good luck, Tinkerbell," he muttered, fake concern dripping from every word. More laughter. A few aides snickered, pretending to check their phones. Karoline kept walking. Out in the main hall, the crowd buzzed with anticipation, phones already aimed at the stage, live streams running hot, every breath recorded, every twitch magnified. The moderator's voice crackled through the speakers. Welcoming the next panelists, Donald slouched into a front-row seat, arms stretched arrogantly across two chairs. He leaned over to another celebrity, whispering, shaking his head like he couldn't believe the joke he was about to watch unfold. The moderator called Karoline's name, applause polite, thin. She stepped onto the stage, shoulders back, chin high. Cameras flashed like lightning. As she crossed in front of Donald, he let out a loud, fake cough. "Freedom Ferry incoming," he whispered, just loud enough. Giggles rippled through the front rows. Karoline paused only a second, not to react but to steady herself. She took her seat. The panel discussion began. Every move she made, Every word she spoke would be dissected mercilessly. Every glance from Donald would be replayed in slow motion. The forum wasn't a place for discourse anymore. It was a battlefield. And the first shots had already been fired. The lights sharpened. The cameras rolled hot. Karoline sat straight, blazer, crisp against the leather chair. The moderator smiled, shuffled papers, and leaned forward. "Karoline Leavitt," he said, "you've spoken a lot about freedom of speech, but critics say your views are, well, outdated. Any thoughts?" Murmurs floated through the crowd. The air bristled with bait. Karoline answered without flinching, "Freedom of speech isn't outdated. It's oxygen. Without it, no movement, no truth, no change survives." Scattered applause, a few polite nods, but Donald's loud yawn cut through the room like a knife. Some people chuckled. Some looked uncomfortable. Karoline didn't glance at him. Instead, she turned slightly toward the audience, voice steady. "Mockery," she said, "is easier than argument. It costs nothing, risks nothing, means nothing." A flicker of silence. Just a beat. Donald leaned back, grinning. He tapped his phone, thumbs dancing. Karoline continued, weaving a clear, sharp speech about discourse, dignity, and democratic spaces. Her words were simple, but striking like cold water thrown over a burning rumor. But Donald wasn't done. Midway through her careful point about civil disagreement, he cupped his hands around his mouth. "Maybe next she'll teach us how to read bedtime stories to billionaires," he bellowed. Laughter exploded across half the hall. The other half shifted awkwardly, glancing around, unsure whether to join or stay silent. The cameras caught everything. The moderator fumbled, laughing nervously. Karoline froze, not out of fear, but calculation. She lifted her eyes slowly, found Donald's smug face in the crowd, held it there. A thin smile stretched across her lips, sharp as broken glass. She leaned slightly toward the mic. "No hurry, no panic. Mockery is easy," she said, voice low but cutting through the noise like a blade. "Responsibility is rare." A heavy silence fell. Even Donald sat back for a second, blinking, the insult not sticking the way he expected. The moment cracked something invisible in the room. Whispers replaced laughter. Cameras tilted forward, zooming in. Somewhere backstage. An intern clipped the moment and uploaded it within seconds. Twitter caught fire. First came the clip. Karoline's calm face, Donald's awkward laugh, the lethal line landing like a punch. Then came the hashtags. "Freedom is rare." Karoline claps back. One popular Gen Z commentator reposted the clip with a single caption. "And she ate?" Thousands of retweets followed. Back on stage, Karoline sat motionless, letting the silence work in her favor. She didn't chase applause, didn't smirk, she just was. Donald shifted uncomfortably, whispered something to the celebrity. Next to him, both forced a weak laugh, but the energy had shifted. Everyone felt it. The moderator, sensing it too, rushed to the next question, tripping over his words. Karoline answered cleanly. Briefly, no grandstanding, no emotional speeches. Meanwhile, backstage, Donald furiously typed on his phone. Another tweet hit the internet. "If I ever dress like that, please cancel me immediately." He attached a photo of Karoline's navy blue suit, adding neon green doodles around it, fairy wings, a wand, a speech bubble that read, "Free hugs for billionaires." Some laughed, some cringed, some just stared, tired of the act. Karoline didn't react. She didn't even glance at her phone, didn't send a message to her team, didn't whisper to an aide. She waited. She let him scramble. She let the world see. And in that waiting, she built her power quiet, massive, and unstoppable. The debate spun on, but the center of gravity had shifted. Karoline wasn't just holding her ground now, she was setting it. Each answer was sharper, more economical. No wasted energy, no performative outrage. Meanwhile, Donald's attempts to bait her grew more desperate. When a question about corporate taxes arose, he interrupted. "Let me guess. You think billionaires should pay your grocery bills too?" He laughed at his own joke. The moderator forced a grin. Karoline didn't flinch. She lifted one eyebrow just slightly and answered with surgical precision. "Successful business people should contribute to the systems that made their success." Possible. No drama, just fact. Undeniable. The audience responded differently this time. Fewer laughs, more stillness, some nods, Donald tapped the mic, pretending it was broken. "Can you repeat that for the people in the cheap seats?" He jeered. Again. Karoline stayed calm. She leaned into the mic and said, crystal clear, "Everyone deserves a seat." The crowd rippled a real reaction this time. Energy coiled tightly around her. Donald rolled his eyes dramatically. Behind him, a few minor celebrities whispered nervously. They sensed the tide turning. Someone from Donald's camp tried to heckle, shouting something about silver spoons and fake populists. It backfired. The audience booed. And Karoline, she smiled. Not a smug smile, but something steadier, like someone watching the first cracks appear in a fortress wall. She didn't chase the moment. She let it breathe. Her next words were almost too soft to catch, but the mic caught them, and they landed like thunder. "We're not fighting for attention," she said. "We're fighting for the future." Screens lit up instantly. Another clip went viral. Journalists scrambled to frame the narrative. Some headlines blared. Karoline Leavitt dismantles disruption tactics on live TV. Donald's jokes fall flat in tense exchange. Memes flooded. Twitter and Instagram, one viral meme split-screened Donald making silly faces with Karoline calmly speaking. The caption read, "One is auditioning, one is leading." It was brutal. It was effective. And it wasn't just social media. Within hours, political commentators picked sides. Some praised Karoline's poise under fire. Some accused Donald of turning serious debate into a circus. Even neutral outlets couldn't deny it. She had won the optics war backstage. Donald fumed. His advisors whispered frantically, damage control, spin, new talking points. It all buzzed. Around him like flies. Karoline, meanwhile, sat quietly in her green room. She sipped water, checked a single text from her team. "You're trending, Wawan." She put the phone away, closed her eyes for a moment, breathed. This wasn't triumph. This wasn't celebration. This was momentum. And she knew momentum had to be guarded like a flame. Small, precious, powerful if fed right. As the event wrapped, journalists shouted questions at both sides. Donald
barked a few jabs about soft snowflakes and loser liberals. The words hung limp in the air. Nobody laughed this time. Karoline walked steadily past the cameras. No rush, no forced smile, no theatrics. A reporter lunged forward. "Ms. Leavitt."
"Do you think you beat Donald Trump tonight?" Karoline paused just slightly, then said simply, "I didn't come here to beat anyone. I came here to build something." Then she was gone into the night, into the movement she was shaping, into the future she refused to surrender. The world buzzed behind her, but Karoline moved forward, unstoppable, unshaken, unbothered. The tension inside the packed auditorium was almost unbearable now. Karoline's team working quietly behind the scenes, prepared to drop what they called the silent bomb. No speeches, no announcements, just one clip ready to explode across the room like a flash of lightning on a dry night. The fundraiser. Donald had bragged about for weeks had hidden secrets. Secrets Karoline's team had uncovered after weeks of digging secret footage of Donald schmoozing billionaires, laughing about the little people, joking about how easy it was to make promises he'd never keep. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was devastating. And tonight, at the perfect moment, they were ready to release it. Donald was midway through another one of his grandstanding speeches, arms waving, voice booming, when it happened. Right as he declared, "I will never sell. You out to the highest bidder." The screen behind him flickered once, twice, then it changed. Without warning, grainy but unmistakable footage filled the auditorium. There was Donald, not even 2 months ago, raising a champagne glass among a glittering crowd. His voice clear as day said, "Let's be honest, these voters. They'll believe anything if you wear a flag pin and talk tough." The room froze. A sharp gasp ran through the audience, a ripple of disbelief and betrayal. Phones whipped out like a reflex. Screens glowed all around. Some started recording. Others texted feverishly. Buzzes, beeps, and stunned whispers filled the air. Donald, still standing on stage, faltered. Just for a second. But in that second, everything changed. His man of the people image, so carefully crafted, cracked like thin ice under heavy boots. His face tightened, His mouth opened, closed, opened again, searching for words. A few loyalists in the front row tried to start a chant. Fake news! Fake news! But it fell flat, sounding desperate, hollow. The crowd wasn't buying it. Karoline knew this was the window. Timing was everything, and her timing was perfect. Calmly, deliberately, she rose from her seat, not rushing, not gloating, just steady, powerful. The lights shifted, and a hush fell. People turned, sensing something. Some already knew. Others simply felt it, a change in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. Karoline moved through the aisle without hesitation. She wasn't looking at Donald. She wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking straight at the camera, unblinking, unflinching. When she reached the foot of the stage, she didn't need a microphone. She didn't need to shout. Her voice was low but carried like a blade slicing through velvet. "Whose hands?" she asked, her eyes locked into the camera's lens. "Are you shaking when you say you stand with the people?" For a moment there was no sound but the low hum of recording phones. The clip hit social media within seconds. No, Karoline won. Hypocrisy. Both hashtags exploded at once. On stage, Donald sputtered. He tried to recover, tried to laugh it off, claiming, it was all out of context, but no one was buying it. Not tonight. Not anymore. The damage was real, and it was bleeding into the crowd like smoke. Karoline didn't move. She didn't say another word. She simply stood there, silent and unshakable, while the storm raged around her. And in that silence, she said everything. Donald tried to rally. He pounded the podium with his fist, his voice rising in a shrill, desperate pitch that betrayed the panic he was trying to hide. "This is a smear job," he shouted. "A deep fake. Lies." His eyes darted around the auditorium, seeking support, seeking anything but what he found were blank stares, some shaking heads, others already walking out. The crowd was slipping through his fingers, and he could feel it. For a man who had built his power on controlling the room, the loss of that control was a death sentence. And Karoline, she simply watched. No gloating, no mockery, just a presence so solid, so rooted, that it made Donald look like a wild animal thrashing in a shrinking cage. People weren't just filming anymore. They were streaming. Clips of Donald's hypocrisy, his floundering attempts to deny the undeniable, were racing across every social platform within minutes. Memes exploded. Reactions flooded in. Commentary was brutal. Hashtags multiplied like wildfire. Karoline 1 was trending at #1 worldwide before Donald even finished his next sentence. Desperate, Donald lurched into another attack. "She's a liar!" he bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at Karoline Leavitt. "She hates America!" His voice cracked mid-sentence, sweat beaded on his forehead, catching the harsh spotlight. But Karoline didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She stood like a monument, letting him destroy himself, one frantic word at a time. Journalists in the room sensed the shift too. Pens flew across notepads. Cameras zoomed in, snapping photo after photo of Donald unraveling, and Karoline standing tall, the perfect image of resilience against corruption. A moment later, a new twist hit the audience like a second thunderclap. Another clip began to play on the screen, one Donald's team hadn't anticipated. This one was even worse. It showed Donald backstage at another event, bragging about the private jets he'd flown on using donor money meant for the kids. Laughter. Clinking glasses, a casual, smug dismissal of the very causes he claimed to champion. This was no longer just about hypocrisy. This was about betrayal. Real. Gut-punching betrayal. The room erupted. Boos drowned out Donald's desperate pleas for calm. A few diehard supporters tried again to rally a chant, but it was useless now. The truth was too big, too raw, too public. Donald, realizing there was no saving it, tried to storm off the stage, but even that exit was a disaster. He stumbled on the last step, catching himself awkwardly against a security barrier. The image of him staggering away, sweaty and humiliated, was immortalized instantly. Across every major news outlet, Karoline didn't move until he was gone. Only then did she step lightly onto the stage. She didn't grab the microphone. She didn't gloat. She simply stood there, looking out over the sea of faces, her presence speaking louder than any words could. For a long, breathless moment, It was just her and the crowd. And then a slow ripple of applause. First one, then three, then a wave building, roaring, until the entire room was on its feet. Karoline had not just exposed Donald, she had buried him, and she had done it without ever raising her voice. Morning after the confrontation, the world woke up to a media storm. Headlines across every major network screamed the same verdict. Karoline Leavitt outclasses Donald Glover. Photos of Donald's sweaty, stammering collapse were plastered side by side with images of Karoline standing calm and unshakable, her silence speaking louder than any takedown ever could. Television panels erupted, talk shows buzzed, podcasts analyzed every second of the confrontation, and think pieces flooded online, each framing Karoline not just as the night's winner, but as something bigger, a symbol of unbending dignity in an era addicted to spectacle. Opinion pieces titled things like "Dignity Defeats Drama" and "How Karoline Leavitt Redefined Victory" shot to the top of trending lists. Even some of Donald's former media allies couldn't deny the optics. They begrudgingly admitted that no matter how you sliced it, Donald had been exposed and Karoline had done it without sinking to his level. Meanwhile, Donald tried to control the narrative. Within hours of the viral collapse, his team rushed out a video, a half-hearted apology, where he awkwardly tried to pivot blame. He mumbled about being misled by advisors. He claimed the video was taken out of context. He muttered vague platitudes about doing better in the future, but nobody was buying it. The apology fell flat. The comments section was brutal. People weren't just angry, they were disappointed. The myth of Donald Glover, the man of the people, had shattered like cheap glass under a microscope, and no amount of spin could piece it back together. Karoline, however, refused to take the bait. She could have danced in his downfall. She could have paraded around the talk show circuit, delivering savage one-liners and scoring easy points. But she didn't. She stayed disciplined. When journalists tried to bait her into gloating, Karoline simply smiled and redirected the conversation. "It's not about personal battles," she said calmly, on a major morning show. "It's about holding our leaders accountable. It's about principles, not personalities." That refusal to engage in pettiness only elevated her further. The public could feel it, the difference between someone hungry for revenge and someone standing for something real. Media outlets that had once written her off now praised her strategic brilliance. Political commentators marveled at her restraint. One viral clip showed her gently waving away a reporter's question about Donald's fall from grace, saying, Real focus should be on restoring trust, not trading insults." It was a masterclass in narrative control. While Donald flailed, trying to stoke outrage and shift blame, Karoline rose above it, quietly building a new image, one that wasn't just about being against something, but for something better. Brands took notice too. Offers for speaking engagements, panel discussions, and even book deals started pouring in. Universities invited her to keynote events about integrity and leadership. In a matter of days, she had transformed from a political underdog into a cultural figure, someone people pointed to as proof that standing your ground with grace could still win in a world addicted to outrage. Karoline understood the rare moment she was living through. She didn't squander it. Instead of cashing in with cheap fame, she kept pushing the conversation back to ideas: transparency, accountability, service over self-interest. She wasn't chasing the spotlight. The spotlight was chasing her. By the end of the week, it was clear. Karoline hadn't just defeated Donald Glover. She had redefined what victory even looked like. As Karoline drove away from the event, the city lights blurred past her, streaking across the dark horizon, like flashes of the life she had just lived through. The night felt distant already, as if it had been a dream. But as the headlights of her car sliced through the quiet streets, her thoughts remained sharp. She had never been in it to win the fight. She had been in it to stand firm. This wasn't about one confrontation with Donald Glover or public approval. It wasn't about whose name trended higher. It was about something far more important: maintaining her truth, even when it was inconvenient, even when the entire world tried to tear it down. Truth, she knew now, was stronger than mockery. Always. Mockery could be loud and flashy, but truth had the staying power. It could hold its ground, quietly, unshakable, Through the flashing cameras, the mocking tweets, and the social media frenzy, Karoline's strategy had been clear from the beginning. She wasn't here to destroy. She was here to build. To show the world that there was a better way to stand up for your principles without sinking to the levels of those who would mock you. As the city faded behind her, Karoline smiled to herself. Tomorrow, she knew, the world would listen. They had laughed at her today, thinking she was weak or naive. But when the dust settled, when the noise died down, it would be her message that remained standing. She had planted the seed. Now, the world would have to reckon with it. They laughed today. Tomorrow, they'll listen.